Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 3, the consent calendar. We'll take each of these separately. I learned my lesson last meeting. We'll do approval of the January 11th, 2023 special meeting minutes first. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the January 11th commission meeting?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, would the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner German,
Aye.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Salcido,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ash,
Aye.
and Chair Cagle.
Aye. Okay, next we will do adoption of the February 16th, 2023 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the February 16th commission meeting?
Sure.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Reese, and a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Salcido? Would the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner German, Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Salcido,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ash,
Abstain.
Chair Cagle.
Aye. Excellent, thank you very much. We'll go on to item number 4A. This is election of the chair and vice chair. At this time, I will open this item up for public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to provide public comment?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion for the election of a new chair?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that Jeremy is be the new chair and Jamie be vice chair.
Okay. Can we do the motions together, or I have them separately, but I suppose we could do them together?
I think you actually need to do them separately.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Then I'll turn it over. Okay, is there a second for the initial motion, please, for the chair as Commissioner Ash?
I'll second.
Okay. Would the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner German, Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Salcido,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ash,
Aye.
Chair Cagle.
Aye.
Sorry, who was that second from?
Commissioner Reese.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Pleasure. And you get to take over now. Do you need these?
Good thing I read this. Thank you, everybody. Okay, I just got to see where I am. Jerry's. Where are we? Do I have a motion for the election of a new vice chair? David?
Yeah. Same motion I had before. Jamie for vice chair.
I'll second.
Okay, would the secretary please call roll?
All right. Commissioner Cagle,
Aye.
Commissioner German,
Aye.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salcido. No, wait. Okay, then Chair, okay, Commissioner Salcido
Aye.
and Chair Ash.
Aye.
All right.
Think that motion carries? Congratulations, Jamie. Okay. Next on the agenda is an item for the commission consideration, draft 2024-2025 capital budget and 2024 to 2023 10-year capital investment program. Transportation projects. At this time, I invite staff to provide their presentation.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. You hear me okay? My name's Alex Wong. I'm here to present to you the transportation projects for the 24-25 capital budget and also the 24-33 capital investment program. This is a study session, so we can take in questions and allows the commission to provide feedback and comments. All right. So tonight's purpose is to present the discretionary transportation projects in the proposed 24-25 capital budget. Also to present the discretionary transportation projects in the proposed 24-33 capital investment program, also known as the CIP. I'm here to receive comments and feedback from the Transportation Commission. And the next step would be to update the 24-25 capital budget per the Commission's recommendations, and also update the 24-33 10-year CIP with the Commission's recommendations. And afterwards, we'll take these updates to Council. So some backgrounds to the capital budget. It's approved every other year. It allocates funds for specific projects. It's informed by the first 2-year cycle of the CIP, and it incorporates a response to the grant awards that we get. So the transportation capital budget projects, it's generated from the TIF. This is more of a 30-year vision. From that, we get the CIP, which is 10-year priorities of projects. And from that, we get the capital budget, which is the 2-year spending plan. So just an overview of the capital budget and the different project categories. So it's 2 main categories. It's the asset management projects and the discretionary projects. The asset management projects include roadway maintenance, building facilities, downtown parking and enhancement, parks and open space maintenance, and sidewalks, storm drains, traffic signals, and parking lots. As for the discretionary projects, there's the discretionary parks and recreation open space projects, which are also pros, and discretionary downtown projects, and discretionary facilities projects, and discretionary transportation projects. And tonight I'm here to talk about the discretionary transportation projects. So grants. See, we've been successful in retaining the traffic technology and communication grants. This is an earmark grant for $2.52 million, and this project would install fiber communication on Ignacio Valley Road. Some of the other projects includes the Safe Route to School improvements. It's an OBAG project for $7,050,000. I think this job we're pretty well lined up for right now. We just haven't gotten the official paperwork yet. The next project is the it's a Contra Costa County-wide Smart Signal project, also an OBAG 3 project for $1 million, and crosswalk improvements at Creekside Drive. It's a TDA project, which is currently we are in the selection process, and that's for $125. All right, so these are the 24-25 capital budget transportation projects. So it's generally consistent with the 10-year CIP. Funding source is from the traffic impact fee and grants. To start, we have $4.3 million in TIF funds available to start, and at the end of the cycle, we're expecting to have about $1.4 million remaining. So I'll just go through the projects real fast here. Unsignalized crosswalk improvements for $200 in traffic impact fees. Bike facilities for $150 in traffic impact fees. School area active transportation and traffic calming for $125 in traffic impact fees. citywide traffic calming for 125 and traffic impact fees, local roadway safety for 250 and traffic impact fees. And here are the 4 grant projects: the Walnut Boulevard sidewalk at Walnut Heights Elementary. We expect 1.7 of the OBAG grant funding to go toward this, and requires those federal grants require match, so that's the 600 plus additional administrative that's cost that's associated with a lot of the federal grant money. Next one, the Safe Route to School improvements, OBAG 3, 5.35 from grants and 900,000 from traffic impact fees. Traffic technology and communications, this is the earmark grant for 2.52 in grants and 400 in traffic impact fees. And the last one, countywide smart signal project. This is 1 million in grants and 200 in traffic impact fees. And I'll go into more details here for each one. So the unsignalized crosswalk improvements. These improvements may include curb ramps, bulb outs, signage, striping, lighting, line of sight, advanced warning, layout, and alignment modifications at unsignalized intersections. And this addresses the highest priority needs. See, next one here. Bike facilities. This improved navigation, safety, and facilities for cyclists. Examples of bike amenities include high visibility bike lanes, bike parking, wayfinding signage, and bike maintenance stations. School area active transportation. These are active transportation improvements around school areas and along routes to school. Implements recommendations from forthcoming Safe Routes to School study. Design and construction of quick-build active transportation projects that also double as traffic calming improvements. It may also be used as matching fund for grants. Citywide traffic calming. This design and construct of quick build improvements supports neighborhood streets programs, including the community engagement and materials such as the yard sign program. And local roadway safety. These are planning, design, and construction of improvements that reduce or eliminate severe injuries and fatal collisions as indicated in the local roadway safety plan. It may also be used as local match for federal, state, and local grants. The Walnut Boulevard sidewalk and Walnut Heights Elementary. This project's currently in design. It's in the 22-23 capital budget. This project would construct sidewalk facilities adjacent to Walnut Heights Elementaries on Walnut Boulevard. And here are the Safe Route to School improvement projects, OBAG 3. It consists of 3 separate projects. First one would enhance safety and improve usability at the Broadway New Avenue Iron Horse Trail intersection. This is shown on the picture in the left side. It includes improvements such as narrowing down the intersection and making a direct crossing across the Iron Horse Trail that goes diagonal across the intersection. The second project, sidewalk and intersection improvements on Seed Road and Ibano. So this is shown the diagram in the middle here, and this would extend the existing sidewalk where there's existing sidewalk gap on Cedro from Walnut Acres Elementary to the Ibano intersection. And it'll also put in curb ramps and make pedestrian safety improvements along that intersection. And the last project is the Parkside Drive sidewalk gap closure. There's currently a sidewalk gap on the east side of Parkside between Buena Vista and San Juan. So this would complete the sidewalk and close the sidewalk gap. Traffic technology and communication, this would strengthen communication infrastructure with fiber connections on Ignacio Valley Road. The city was awarded a federal earmark grant to support this project. And the countywide smart signal project. So this is a joint project with the CCTA to improve traffic signal infrastructure. It would also improve signal communication and coordination to enhance traffic flow, reducing congestion and improving safety. All right. I'm going to pause here for questions and comments on the 24-25 capital budget. Receive comments and recommendations.
Do we have any questions for the member? We'll do questions and then comments. Questions, anybody?
Let me swing back here to the project list.
Yeah, I was curious about the traffic technology and the countywide traffic signal project. Do they overlap? Are they both for Ignacio, or do they include Treat? Do you have any more specifics?
Yeah, I'm more familiar with the traffic technology and communication. This is a grant that we put on, we submitted to install fiber just on Ignacio. We're looking at putting in fiber connecting all the way from 680 all the way down to Oak Grove. So that's the traffic technology and communication. The countywide one, I'll let Smodar take that one.
Yeah, so it's actually really nice because we got that the money for the fiber along Ignacio. We're able to actually use these other funds that CCTA had pursued separately for upgrades. So it just puts us in a really good position because we'll have that signal infrastructure, that backbone, to help support us being able to use some higher quality technologies. So it'll probably take us a little further, but there is a little bit of an overlap because the corridors right now that have been identified are Ignacio Valley Road, North Main, and Treat Boulevard, and that's what we have within Walnut Creek. This is countywide, though, and so CCTA is still trying to figure out, based on the amount of funds that they were awarded through the OBAG 3 process, how many of these streets are actually going to get allocations. And so Ignacio Valley Road would be more strongly positioned because of the other work that we have going on. So that's a good thing. But basically, within this capital budget, this is our best guess, best effort at what we'll actually get in terms of an allocation. And at least that way we have TIF money or our match ready to go when CCTA is ready to award the money to us for procurement of those improvements.
So the countywide money, would be the Walnut Creek portion, 1 million, and then there's more money that others would have?
That's right. So it's a much larger number that is spread out countywide. So this was our best guess based on the number of traffic signals or the number of intersections we have overall that were part of that grant application, but we're not actually sure how many of our intersections will get these upgrades.
And then after these two projects are done, the next step then would be to get the software and upgrade the systems operation, or does this money also include upgrading your infrastructure and the software as well?
It's a combination of both. So they're going through a systems engineering process that's federally required, and then it would be an upgrade for the hardware itself for the traffic signals, and then also the software upgrades that may or may not be required depending on what vendor is selected.
Yeah.
Do any other members have questions? David?
Sort of asked, sorry, I was speaking better. I'll try to be clear. How many strands are you putting in the grounds with this project?
How many strands in the fiber? I believe it's what we have taken from City Hall up to the Civic intersection is 288 strands, and we intend to keep that same amount of strands up and down Ignacio.
How far down Ignacio are you planning to run?
We're planning to take it all the way down to Oak Grove and that side, and same over to 680.
Thank you.
Jamie?
So for the first 5 line items on this list, those fees I assume that does not cover construction? Is that, like, what were those fees be covering?
Yeah, they include construction. They're
Okay.
kind of like we call them basket projects. That includes like a cumulative, like couple of different projects in it. So it's just a pool of projects that we can implement.
Okay. And then for the countywide smart signal project, does that incorporate things for non-vehicles as well in terms of the smart signal? Like, how does that? Can you maybe talk through a little bit more of how that works?
Yes.
That too.
Yeah, so that countywide smart signal project, when CCTA applied for that funding, they were looking at improvements not just for vehicles, but it's also intended for bicycles and pedestrians, and so and safety as well. So that was their intent, and so the types of improvements from a technology standpoint would include something like bicycle detection maybe, or improved signal heads for pedestrians or bicycles. So we're not, or some other kind of even more advanced technology. We're just not sure exactly what that technology is going to look like yet, because that systems engineering hasn't been completed yet.
Commissioner Cagle?
I have a quick question. I hope I didn't miss this somewhere, but you have here the remaining TIF funds of about 1.4. What of those? Do we hang on to those in case there are great matching opportunities in the future that might come up? Because sometimes grant opportunities come up, or what of those?
Yeah, we carry those over to the next cycle. Just for we only get certain amount of TIF funding. It's from developers and so on every year. So we carry a larger amount. So we could accommodate for more projects in the following years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so for the fibers on Ignacio Valley, what exactly will these fibers do?
Fibers for the communication. It creates a larger bandwidth, so it can take more data back and forth. The data
Right,
could be
thank
used
you.
for a lot of things.
Oh.
Just leave it at that.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Any comments from the commissioners? Thoughts, recommendations? Yep, Commissioner Reese?
Of the earlier funds, how much of this work, the unsignalized, the bike ped school area, how much of that construction is done by city forces, or is it all contractor bid?
There's some very small deployments where we'll actually have our traffic maintenance division go and do that work, but it's well within what the state allows for what we're allowed to do in-house. So they're really like very small projects.
Yeah, I ask because the monies are very small.
Well, so we do bid out to contractors these types of projects. So just to give you an example, unsignalized crosswalk improvements, this is not a new project by any means. As Alex had noted before, this is something that's has appeared in our CIP over the last several years, and it's in the current CIP and in part of this update. And depending on what staff decides to go after in terms of like what the priority crosswalk locations are, and we do have a prioritization list, and we're going to be reevaluating that list using some of the local roadway safety plan learnings. But it could be just one crosswalk location that we've thrown everything at it, and so we've expended the $200,000 in one location, or it could be something that's lower cost or quick build that's a little bit less expensive. But we do still contract these out we've been doing that over the last few years.
Yes, we have a project that's scheduled to start pretty soon to put in these crosswalk protection components in, with just striping work. So it's not very expensive, but it does quite a bit. So.
Okay. So did you want comments, or was comments after this is over?
I actually want to ask, is there any members of the public here for public comments? And then you could.
We do have some members on Zoom, but I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, if you're in the audience and would like to provide a comment, if you're joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or press *9 if you're connected by audio only, if you'd like to provide a public comment.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, so yeah, we'll take further commissioner comments. Commissioner Reese?
I guess the only real comment that I have is that as a consultant, I only see single projects, and when I look at this, I see that we don't really seem to be spending a whole lot of money on transportation and transportation safety. And I don't know if there's a way for that to change or evolve in the future. But you know, some of the bids that I see in construction, you would spend $100,000 on a single crosswalk, and it just it's unfortunate that we don't have a greater source of funding for transportation safety in our city.
You know what? So something that I'd like to add here, which is not encompassed in the transportation discretionary projects. The big thing that's missing is our roadway maintenance projects. And so when Alex had gone through that, it was one of the first slides talking about the different types of projects that exist in the CIP or in our capital budget. One of the biggest expenditures is, you know, roadway maintenance. And so when we do that, we always incorporate safety elements into that project. And so that's, I think, where you're seeing those larger types of projects, the bigger expenditures, is under that rather than the transportation discretionary projects alone. And so some of these basket projects, we can leverage some of that TIF money to help fund some of those safety related improvements that kind of align with these types of safety improvements. But this list does, every single one of these projects addresses safety in some shape or form, even if it's the fiber work, which indirectly provides some safety enhancement because of the technology that can help provide traffic safety improvements. So, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so actually, it's one of the projects that we had go out to bid already,
Yeah,
right?
it was awarded the last council meeting, I believe. It's about 2.4 million for South Main street improvements between Nero and the freeway, and we're putting a mid-block crosswalk at Kaiser emergency entrance right there on South Main. And we're also doing some nickdowns, and we're actually doing a pedestrian scramble at the intersection of Lilac and South Main. So yeah, there's a very lot of work in those.
Yes,
components.
so
So
that
that-
includes, sorry, go ahead.
that's all as part of the maintenance budget, and so that's where you're really having the greatest effect on safety, is not through this discretionary work. I mean, it's important, but the city is being proactive whenever they go in and do a maintenance project on a roadway. They aren't just restriping 12 or 14-foot lanes. They're looking at what they can do. You're looking at what you can do to enhance safety and incorporate additional safety features on these corridors.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Commissioner Sausalito.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just mentioned about the roadway maintenance and other projects that sort of incorporate some of these elements, that probably addresses that. I guess it's not as clear because it's not defined, but because when I see $150,000 over a 2-year budget for bike facilities, it feels like a very small amount. And I was just talking with one of the teachers at my daughter's school who's from the Netherlands, and she was complimenting me on my bike and said it was cool. It's a cargo bike that my daughter rides on the back of. And she was like, "Do you feel safe riding around here?" And she's from the Netherlands, so like a very avid cycling culture. And she says she doesn't ride her bike around here because she does not feel safe coming from a place like the Netherlands where everyone bikes everywhere. But of course, they have that critical mass of people. They have the infrastructure to support it. And so I guess it's just a little disappointing to see such a small dollar amount next to bike facilities. And I realize that it's incorporated into a lot of these other line items on here and to other projects that are not listed on here. But I guess I'd just like to see more of a commitment from a budgetary perspective to improving things that can really have an impact on how people get around the city, and opportunities for people to choose something other than a car when possible.
Commissioner Cagle.
I agree. It would be nice, of course, pie in the sky to have, more funding to do more safety projects. I am proud of a lot of the work that we've done to this point that have incorporated safety elements into some ongoing maintenance projects. And I also am encouraged and hope that we continue with some of these pots of money to, I always call it the all roads lead to Rome, like as we piece people to downtown, making walking, biking, alternate modes of transportation to get downtown easier. I hope that that's a priority in all of this as well. Thank you.
Maybe something we could do on the bikes is get a sense of the bike facilities the city currently has or is planning at a future meeting, right? How much money has recently been spent? How much additional money past this? What are other bike improvements? Maybe just get like a whole bike presentation. I think that would be helpful. My only comments are around the Ignacio fiber that's going in. That is amazing. And since I think every month I comment of how long the commute took, it averages between 8 and 28 minutes, 8 being fast. Today at 12:02 hitting Oak Grove to the 24 intersection, it took 19 minutes. That is long for that time of day, and it's simply because there's no synchronization of those lights. I've literally hit every light trying to follow the speed limit, and it wasn't for traffic. And this is the first time in a while there was no lane closed, and so I was disappointed that it still took, 10 minutes longer than the shorter time. So I share that, but I'm excited about that going in to eventually help solve that problem. And hopefully other cities do. Are we then talking, if we're going to do that, like with Concord and Clayton and Pittsburgh, about them sinking so the whole road eventually sinks? Would be my question.
I think that's more geared toward the countywide smart signal projects, right, Sundar?
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right. Well, I can still get the second part here.
Okay, well, we'll call you back. Next on the agenda is an item for commission.
Oops.
Nope. Oh, this is still the same, second half, sorry.
All right, the CIP. Okay, so let's start with some background. The 10-year CIP is a planning document. It's deliberately broad and long-term, which allows the city to identify, prioritize, and then schedule projects in 2-year cycles. The 10-year CIP does not appropriate funds. That is done separately with the 2-year capital budget. The 10-year CIP is also a dynamic document that builds on previous work. So a CIP overview. So it consists of roadway maintenance, buildings, transportation, general plan 2025, parks and open space, storm drain, parking, and all these projects, all these goes into the 10-year CIP. And with that, we get the capital budget. And for the transportation projects, we get community input, asset management, TIF eligible project lists, development projects, EIRs, staff and TC input. All these goes into the transportation projects for the 10-year CIP, and they go into the capital budget. So CIP funding. So general funds, every 2-year cycle, there's about 3.6 million that goes into asset management projects. Of that, the 250,000 of it goes toward traffic signal and streetlight maintenance. Also have traffic impact fees. These are fees assessed to new and expanded development projects. And we anticipate $1 million per 2-year cycle. This varies depending on how developers come in. And grants and improvement districts. So grants are not very predictable, and the special improvement district funds are limited. So the 24 to 33 10-year CIP. There's an update of the 22 to 31 10-year CIP. It focused on the first 2 years, then years 2 to 4, then years 4 to 6. And we're really unable to forecast funding beyond 6 years, and it's okay to have unfunded projects. All right, starting to go over the projects here. So in the 24-25 CIP, these are same as the capital budget, which we just talked about, with the 5 kind of basket projects in the front, and then we have the 4 grant projects following. I'm not gonna go into each one again, so I'll move on to the next 2-year cycle. See the 26-27 CIP. So we have the same 5 basket projects up front. So starting the next one is the traffic signal in Street Boulevard and Arkell Road. This project is carryover from the previous cycle. Same as the enhanced traffic signals. I think this was called adaptive traffic signal prior. We just changed the name of it. The next one, Olympic Corridor Trail Connector Study and Improvements. This is the environmental analysis and design. Next one, San Miguel Drive and pedestrian improvements. This is a new project. The county is working with the city to put in sidewalk at the top of Newell Avenue up the hill, connecting to, I think, Blackwood. This would close the sidewalk gap there. And the city's share of it is about $900,000. And next project's wayfinding signage. This is a carryover from the previous cycle. So I know that's a lot of information, so I'll go through each of these 2 years and get some comments back, so I don't have like 8 years of comments at once. So.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public still here when they're waiting to comment?
We do have members of the public. Depending on how you want to do this, we can wait until the end to take public comments, or we can do it for each of the following 4 slides.
Okay. There's 4 more slides?
Yeah.
On this? Okay, let's keep going then. Sorry.
All right. Okay.
But did you want Did you want to provide questions or comments right now? Since this is a study session, it doesn't need, yeah.
Is now an appropriate time to ask questions?
Yeah, I think we're trying to break it up again so that
Yeah.
we can get feedback because it's a lot of information all at once. So
So I think leave comments maybe towards the end, but if you have questions, especially that help you clarify and understand things, they'll probably help all of us, so please ask.
Could you, I think we've reviewed this before, but actually, so for the enhanced traffic signals, like what would those enhancements be?
yeah, so the enhanced traffic signals could be anything from improved signal hardware to improved signal software to make it operate like more efficiently, or it could also be for checking, like doing like traffic safety assessment, catching like near miss collisions, depending on the software that we get. So it's kind of all over the place. It can be pedestrian, bike related, and vehicle related, but we would be using this project as we'd identify a corridor and figure out which corridor we're going to try and implement these improved efficiencies along. Very similar to the countywide smart signal project, just for more of our local streets that are not the CCTA version of it.
And then it looks like the lines above that line. So those are the same in all of these cycles? Is that kind of essentially what we're looking at?
Yes, those are the same 5 basket projects that get carried on every
Got it.
cycle for the next 5 cycles.
Okay.
All 5 cycles.
And there is some overlap the local roadway safety plan kind of, is there a reason that is kind of separated from these other
Yes.
items?
Yes. So the other projects really are more of the small. So unsignalized crosswalk improvements could really be unsignalized crosswalks along any street. Like think about North Main up at SOS or 3rd. Those are unsignalized crosswalks along this major arterial. So this would be the exact type of project that we would use this funding for to improve. The school area active transportation is really anything that could calm traffic and improve pedestrian or bike safety around schools. Citywide traffic calming is really the implementation of the Neighborhood Streets program, which we have talked about previously, and we're actually going to touch on tonight a little bit later. But that's really more like the residential streets. What kind of traffic calming can we do for those streets? And then the local roadway safety is a little bit of a bigger pot of money, but this is we're going after federal grant funding and we need some matching funds. We're going to do something substantial, like make massive safety improvements on one of our large arterials. So this is just our opportunity to have these funds available for us to be able to go after those larger grant funding. Or we could also use this overlap to make some larger improvements, like, looking at bike facilities, it's $150,000. But if we wanted to do something much more substantial, like improving a bikeway into something that's like very high quality facility, we're going to need more money than just that. And since we know from what we've learned from our previous local roadway safety plan updates, we do have some corridors where we have bike facilities that we have vulnerable road users. And so those kinds of upgrades to the bike facility would actually be a safety improvement and then ties back into local roadway safety. So really it's just providing us with a little more flexibility to be able to go after grant funding, matching funds to do something a little more substantial.
Okay, so even though right now there's no grants listed, that doesn't mean there might not be. The hope is that there will be additional grant funding. Okay.
Exactly.
Questions right now? 2 quick questions. Yeah, please.
So I heard you say that the enhanced traffic signals might include near-miss type technology. Did I hear that correctly, that you're looking into that?
It's something that we'd like to look into, but I think we're going to rely on that countywide smart signals project first to see if that's some kind of technology that
That's
makes
workable,
sense.
it makes
Yeah,
sense, yeah.
exactly. This is
Okay.
this is in a little bit of time, so we have time to figure it out.
Yeah, and then the Olympic Corridor Trail Connector Study, I'll give you an out. Could you describe it? Or maybe it's too difficult to describe and you could just bring an information item to a future meeting? Because I'd be interested in understanding that project and what it's intended to do.
I think staff can bring the Olympic Boulevard Corridor Trail Connector project back to this commission. Yeah, we can do that at a future date.
All right. Alex, would you like to keep going, please?
Oh, yes.
You can finish your note.
Okay. All right. I think we're at 28, 29. So again, the 5 basket projects. So next project up is the traffic signal master replacement. It's carryover from the previous CIP. Traffic technology and communication. Shadeland multinodal improvements, bike lanes and sidewalk gap closures. Lincoln Avenue ped bike improvements. Oakland Boulevard and Mount Diablo corridor per West Downtown specific plan. This is just the preliminary study. And the Olympic Boulevard corridor construction. This is the new part of it. And get questions again.
I think, well, I guess this is more of a comment than a question, but I would like to see in here the potential, or I'll ask it as a question, what is the potential to add in here improvements based on the fiber going in that we were just talking about, Ignacio Valley Road, right? So if we're putting in this fiber, we have all this, right? There's going to be eventually new technology that we want to deploy. Is that in here as part of the traffic technology communication, or do we need to, during the comment phase, ask for more money to be focused by the year 28, 29, right, to really take advantage of that?
I believe that traffic technology and communication is for fiber. That's what it's put in there for.
Yeah, you know, that countywide smart signal project really does start to address that traffic signal, the traffic signal hardware and software improvements for Ignacio as is. Because this is really a planning document, this is the intent here for the traffic technology is really the fiber piece. The enhanced traffic signals is where that additional hardware comes into play for the traffic signals themselves. So again, it's a planning document. So depending on how things go, are we able to get more fiber in? Can we identify more corridors for improved technology? And then move on from there. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, and you have to start seeing how things play out and things go, but you're lining up. This is your goal statement right now.
Yeah.
Just along those lines, the signal master replacement, that sounds like that's the bucket that Commissioner Ash is interested in. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the traffic signal master replacement is where we take another look at the vendor or the technology we're actually using to control the traffic signals themselves. And then there's software associated with that where we're able to communicate from City Hall out to all the traffic signals to figure out signal timing and do some other things. So this is where we would relook at that because the last time we did it was, I guess, about a decade ago now. So technology changes, And, some of the inputs for this too is really potentially that countywide smart signal project as well. But depending on which city you talk to, some will have several different vendors. So there's lots of options out there, but that's when we would really start to go into a process of selecting a new vendor or sticking with the same one.
So two follow-up questions to that. What would be the timeline that you just talked about?
Well, the signal master replacements in the 2029 CIP. So we
Okay,
wouldn't
that's here.
start that. Yeah, we wouldn't start that process until 2028.
Okay. And then are we streetlight data or replica, which are transit data collection services? Does the city belong to either one of those?
So we have a subscription for streetlight data with a few other agencies within Contra Costa County. We also have access to something called INRIX through Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and I think that's it. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions, or are we ready for the next slide? Okay, next slide, Alex.
Okay. All right, 3031. So again, we have the 5 basket projects, and we have 3 more projects here. The Ignacio Valley Road, Bancroft, Walnut intersection improvements. Ignacio Valley Road sidewalk sound wall replacement between John Muir and St. Carlos. This is the wall on the south side. And Main Street Bonanza and Main Street Cypress intersection redesign and construction. These are the 3 projects for the 3031 cycle, and open up for questions again.
Just as I'm seeing these projects and remembering them, I'm curious, is there a reason that all of the capital projects are funded by the traffic impact fees and grants and not from like the general fund? And I don't know if like Measure O, like if any of that, because I thought that public safety was part of Measure O, and it was a very broad definition of public safety in that campaign for Measure O anyway, that included like safety improvements to streets. Is there a reason that general fund doesn't provide any of the transportation project budget?
Can you just identify yourself for the people on the Zoom?
Sure. Good evening. I'm Steve Waymeyer. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director and City Engineer. And so the first part of the question is general fund going to these projects. And the way our budget's set up is there's only a limited amount of general fund goes into the actual whole capital improvement program and CIP, and that's used for maintenance almost exclusively. And so just in order to keep the city running, all the general fund goes to all of the fund programs, swimming and the leisure and all that kind of stuff. At the end, we get, I think, is it 2%, Alex? 2% of the amount of the operating budget gets to come into this CIP, and most of that's used just to take care of our existing infrastructure. It's about $3.6 million over a 2-year cycle. And you can imagine one air conditioning system takes about $1 million to replace. The leisure, we probably spent, $4 or $5 million over the next 3 or 4 years just taking care of the leisure. So the majority of the general fund that comes out goes to just really maintenance, and that's kind of the way it's set up. So what that does is it leaves us with these other pockets of funds to try and do what we need to do. We rely pretty heavily on grants and that traffic impact fee and those type of funds to try and get things done. So your other part of your question was Measure O and how much is going to be spent here. I think that's a question that you could ask, and we'll maybe have as a comment that we may put in there to council if that's what you think there should be some Measure O put into type of projects. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it does seem like there's been a couple things I've heard here is more funds for bicycle improvements is one thing that you would like to have that's you're not seeing in here. And then the other question comes is how much Measure O funds would be used for transportation-related safety projects is another question. So I think that's a good takeaway. That's the kind of input we need from this commission to take to the city council, and we can tell them that that's something you're thinking about. I'm guessing this first budget cycle with the Measure O, they're really focusing on the pool and a couple other projects. And then once they get their arms wrapped around that, they'll start looking at what other funds are available to do other projects like that. So I think this first budget cycle, they sort of had their heads wrapped around that. But then once we kind of get things under control, the next operating capital budget will be the time we start thinking about Measure O and where it might go for something like some of these projects.
And a follow-up question is the percentage that is allocated to the CIP from the general funds. Is that right? There's like a certain percentage. Is there a reason it is that certain percentage? Is that like mandated by law or something, or is that a council decision?
Yeah, it's a council decision that and I can't remember exactly what document that we sort of been using to that. It used to be significantly less, and we've had this, whole Your Parks, Your Future, whole idea about infrastructure for the last 10 or 15 years, and the council really has been putting extra funds into this. And so there has been a significantly amount of money since I started being put back into taking care of the buildings. And so the 2% was a number that seemed to balance out with our normal operations and what we would have left. And when you see the operating budget, there's really no money left over at the end of the day. And you can watch the council as it's coming up here in May. You'll see that. So, they are carving that off. And then that, if I say I want more staff, no, we're putting money into the maintenance, So it's a pretty good chunk compared to other cities. I'll give you a good instance. Right now we get Measure J and gas tax money we can put on our roadways. The county spends all that money just on their staff, their roadway maintenance staff. So the general fund portion you're not seeing that other people do is general fund pays for all of our roadway maintenance from our maintenance crews, right? That operating maintenance budget is paid mostly by general fund. There is some gas tax that goes into that. So it kind of goes back to the whole question you had about, well, where's all the bike projects? We build those into our maintenance projects and other funds. You don't see them all, which I think there was a good point as well. If we don't see them, how do we know what you're doing? And so I think it was a good idea to kind of bring those forward to you because, we have the California or the Broadway roadway diet project that doesn't show up in here at all. That's a whole nother project that doesn't show up. And all the work that we did in Shaylands, that shows up in our maintenance budget. But you're not seeing all of those projects. So I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by not showing what we're doing. I won't disagree that there's a lot more the city can do, but I think there is a lot of other work that we're not doing a very good job sort of advertising what we have going on. Any other questions about that budget cycle piece of it? Okay.
I would just challenge you to come back and brag a little bit.
Yeah, we do. We're engineers. We're not very good at that. We get the projects done, we move on to the next one. So there's a lot of really good projects coming up in the next 3 to 4 years, particularly because Smadara, as a traffic engineer, has been pushing these projects and all the work that the consultants have been doing. And so I'm really excited the next 3, 4, 5 years of all the work that's been going on, what you're going to see for the city. So,
Thank you. All right. Any more on this one, or are we ready for Alex to get to the next slide?
All right. The last 2 years. It's 32, 33 CIP. We have the same 5 basket projects. And then we have the Neo Avenue enhanced traffic signals, Olympic Corridor Trail connector study and improvements. This is the construction part of it. Oakland Boulevard and Mount Diablo Corridor per West Downtown Civic Plan. This is the construction part of it. Ignacio Valley Road Class 1 from Viamonte to San Carlos. Ignacio Valley Road Class 1 from San Carlos to Iron Horse Trail. And the traffic signal at Civic and Arroyo Way. And these are the projects for the 32-33 CIP. And take questions again.
Do you know when the pool and the Heather Farms improvements for Measure O, what the schedule is for when that's going to be completed? I know it seems off, but it connects with your YVR improvements.
I believe it's the construction of it's program for the next, the 26-27 cycle.
Steve Waymeyer, city engineer. Yeah, so right now the schedule is to have construction start 2025, summer 2025, and toes in the water in 2028. That's what I've been told. Toes in the water 2028. So that's when those projects are expected to be completed. Also, at the same time, somewhere along in there, we're going to be doing synthetic turf over fields 1 and 2 in Heather Farm Park. So Heather Farm Park is going to have a significant amount of work going on over that time period.
Thank you.
And I think just on that timeline that the city has just approved for the architectural hiring. So they're really at, even though they've talked about the pool and aquatic center for a long time, they're really now just getting started because they have the money projected.
Okay. Is that a question? No. No. Okay. Okay. That's, any more questions? So now move on to the next slide. So this is pretty much concludes the presentation. Just looking for commission to provide comments and give prioritization for the 24-33 capital improvement program. I guess the next step would be to make updates for your recommendations, and we'll bring the updates to the council.
Right. I have one other question, and then maybe we'll do public comment and then commissioner comments. What is the total unfunded sum of all of those years? You may need a minute to do the math unless you have that, and then do we possibly know is there a projected TIF fund based on potential buildings that could add to that?
That's I guess the second part. It's difficult to predict when these developments come in. I hear that there's some planned projects from developers, but as you know, interest rates gone up and their funds kind of dried up, so they haven't come in. So it's hard to say when those projects would come in and give and provide the funds. But I think our budget manager had informed me that you can expect 1 million would be conservative for the 2-year cycle per each 2-year cycle.
And then what's the total that's unfunded in this 10-year plan? You could.
I have not made the.
We'll do public comments, and then if you could just do some quick thanks. Is there any members of the public still here, and anybody who has a hand raised wishing to make a comment at this time?
We have a few attendees on Zoom, but there are no raised hands.
Okay, if you're in the audience and would like to provide a public comment, please, if you're joining us by Zoom, please raise your hand feature or press *9. We'll give you a minute just to see if you want to weigh in, and then we'll do commissioner comments.
No hands.
Okay, so commissioners, anybody want to comment on all this?
I'll go. So I appreciate the presentation. I think that I think there's a mismatch that's happening along the lines of one of the pieces of Measure O is that it's intended to improve our facilities, it's upgrading our facilities, assuming that we're doing that because we want to attract more people to use our facilities. Yet there's really nothing in the measure that talks about how people are going to get to the facilities except by car. And so I was hoping that we would see a transportation capital improvement program that would look at Measure O, look at when those new facilities are coming online, and maybe trying to figure out how to leverage money to improve transportation to those facilities when they dip their toe in the pool in 2028. But I don't see the YVR improvements coming in until 2033. And if you look at our grid, if you look at our transportation network, YVR is the workhorse to get through and serve Walnut Creek for cars. And it makes sense that it would also need to be the workhorse to serve bicyclists and pedestrians. Otherwise, in order for us to get to Heather Farms from this side of town or from the south side of Ignacio, we have to ride our bikes up Iron Horse Trail to the Canal Trail, and then ride the Canal Trail, and then ride back down to get to the pool. When in fact, if we had a direct connection, YVR, we could just get onto that facility, and that facility would serve all of our neighborhoods, or most of our neighborhoods in the city, so that people could get to the greatly improved public facilities that are being built by Measure O. So it feels like that the city needs to, and this would be the council, because it's a pretty big deal, it feels to me like the city should be thinking about how they can provide transportation connections that work when our new facilities open up. And that would be that's the only comment that I really have about the CIP, is that you need to look at it in the context of what the city is doing and what the city is implementing over time. So that's all. Thanks.
Commissioner Kegel?
Thank you for those comments. I hear you that, obviously that's a big priority coming out of Measure O, but I think we also have a lot of priorities as a city, and even economic development-minded priorities as we're coming out of, the pandemic and figuring out what's next for us economic development-wise, downtown, et cetera. And so I'll just reiterate that the All Roads Lead to Our Economic Center is something that's important to me. And in looking at this too, a lot of the projects listed on here, I don't see a ton that is related to the North Downtown specific plan, and maybe that's something that we see will be more funded through other impact fees as the development happens. But I think that's a key area of our city that a lot of people are really excited about what's going to happen there, and I think that we need to do it right because we're going to have a lot of people living there, and we need to set up a space where they feel safe being pedestrians or biking or being on wheels of some sort that aren't, a car. So I would just add that as a priority. Thank you.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
It's a lot of information to process, so I'm still kind of processing it, to be honest. But I think one of the things that would be really helpful to see is a more holistic picture of what projects that are transportation related that we're working on that may not be dedicated transportation projects, but as we've talked about before, like some of the maintenance things that are happening that incorporate efforts to improve safety for bikes and pedestrians. If there are actions that are being taken with some of these parks projects that would also address some of the needs for bike facilities, and just ensuring that there's going to be ample and adequate bike parking and things like that at all of these locations, which is just kind of hard to see with the way that this is laid out, and I mean, frankly, has been laid out for probably many, many years as we've looked at these types of budgets. But I'm just struggling to really see the impact that we can have on transportation, and I think that transportation should be a very high priority from an infrastructure standpoint, particularly as we are aiming in the not too distant future to have, be carbon neutral as a city. And it's sort of scary to see these budgets that go into the 2030s that are just starting to address some of the major issues on YVR that really impact pedestrians and bicyclists, and just a willingness to use those corridors in those modes because it feels so unsafe. And I think I had mentioned this 2 years ago when we had previously discussed this topic, but it would be, I mean, it's hard to see because all of these things are important, but YVR is the major corridor in the city, and to have some of those big improvements so far into the future is disappointing to see. And the more that we could start moving some of these projects earlier into these budget cycles would be nice to see, and perhaps that would be possible with Measure O funding, since we're supposedly getting a lot more funds for the city to do all of the things that we are hoping to do to improve the quality of life here. And it seems like we need to make these projects a priority. It's affecting people's lives when it comes to traffic accidents, as well as quality of life in terms of how long it takes people to get from point A to point B, as well as equity impacts, because certain communities are more likely to need to be a pedestrian or a bicyclist and not maybe be able to afford a vehicle. So I think that's why I would just advocate in general for more funding for these really critical, important infrastructure projects. And, you know, the more that we improve safety through design and engineering, we may not need to spend as much money on enforcement. Like, I don't know what percentage of the police budget is spent on traffic enforcement, but I'd be curious to see that breakout and see if there are opportunities to sort of get a return on our investments in a way by investing in the right infrastructure and the right design, so that we can really improve the connectivity for non-vehicular movement around the city.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? Ian? Commissioner German?
Question first. None of the projects use Measure O funds now, do they? I'm sorry.
The Measure O funds?
None of the funds use Measure O funding now, do they?
No, not in the current capital budget of the CI for transportation projects. In the next cycle, there are some Measure O funds being used for the parks projects.
And if you look at, let's say 31, 32, the San Juan and Gainesville, how many years has that been on the CIP? The sound wall.
The sound wall? That is in the 30-31 currently.
And
It's been on the CIP for 15 years.
Is it? Do you ever drop any of these things? Like, you don't really anticipate funding for them, do you?
It's an unfunded project on here.
It's unfunded project.
It's an unfunded project. I think
It's been unfunded for years.
yeah, I think the total unfunded, just my quick calculator, was 46.5 million.
Okay. Commissioner Yao, any comments or questions? Okay, thanks. All right. I guess my comment would be a takeaway from some of the things I've heard from my colleagues is maybe we could do a study session on YVR where we map out, hey, this is the long-term, all of these improvements that are going in, and include what we tangentially know about the Heather Farms improvements that are coming, but just everything from fiber to the sound wall, biking as it relates to it, and just get a good sense. And then based on Commissioner Cagle's comment, maybe something similar for the, help me get there, related to the RENA numbers and the projected, like there's a lot of new potential zoning in the North Downtown Specific Plan, along the BART station areas, how we're starting to bake in those specific area plans related to traffic flow if you're going to have another 50,000, 100,000 units, right? Is that a good, any other? Okay. I know that's, sorry, countywide maybe, but.
San Francisco.
Okay, so anything else on your end, Alex? We good?
I'm on it.
Anything else? All right, thank you, we appreciate it. All right, we'll move on. Let me move on to my page here. Okay, next on the agenda as an item for the commission consideration, update on vehicle speeds in Walnut Creek. At this time, I invite staff to provide their presentation. Thanks, Alex. While we're waiting for staff to pull up their presentation, I've noticed that our neighboring city on Treat got pretty damaged in the last couple of months of storms, but is a vital flow for residents of Walnut Creek. I don't know if there's a way we can maybe nudge our neighboring city, Concord, about make them aware of that. I don't know, staff, if you can call your friends, they may not take that road. I know somebody in staff here lives near there, and probably it got pretty beat up.
Yeah, so I'll give them a call and probably start work this summer on it. The plan is to do some work this summer from Treat all the way from Winton, which is where De La Salle High School is, all the way to at least up to Clayton Road. It's a huge project that they're going to plan, and maybe we should come back because it does impact us and kind of give you some more information as what the impacts are going to be, because it's going to be a complete reconstruction of the roadway starting this summer.
Yeah, okay, that's great. I'm glad I asked. And yeah, it would be good to know because it would affect traffic and residents in Walnut Creek and shopping.
We're communicating with them right now and actually helping them with their traffic control plans so that it'll be as helpful as we can. Let's put it that way.
Thanks.
Okay, and with that, evening commissioners. My name is Brianna Byrne, and I'm an associate traffic engineer here, and we're just going to be going over vehicle speeds in Walnut Creek and kind of how that relates to a couple of plans and programs that we've been discussing over the past couple months. So we're going to be going over a very quick overview of the regulatory settings, how speed limits are set, what's been traditionally done then, and as a federal and state, this directive, where we're going next. We're going to tie that into the safe system and safe speeds. We have some citywide data of speeds on Walnut Creek from our local road safety plan. So we'll go over that along with existing plans and programs, and then looking at the next steps for the future. So with that, we have essentially two types of speed limits. There's statutory speeds, which are almost like the base speed set by CBC. So it's, a 2-lane undivided roadway, 55 miles per hour. This asterisk here we have for 25. If a street meets a certain criteria of width and length, then it can just be posted at 25. There's some allowances for 20 and 15, example being school zones, and alleyways for 15 miles per hour. Where a street doesn't fall into these categories, we have to do what's called an engineering and traffic survey. So as part of that process, the first step is to collect speed data, and this is during these free flow conditions. So not during peak hour and YVR. As part of that, following that data collection, we have this 85th percentile. This, up until now, has been what essentially sets the speed in Walnut Creek, as well as throughout the state. But this is the speed at which 85% of the vehicles are going. Once that's determined, you round up or down to the nearest 5, and then there is some allowances for a reduction of 5 miles per hour. What this has led to over this time is this chicken or the egg paradox, where facilities are designed for drivers' comfort at the speed they're going. So they get built, the driver feels comfortable, we conduct these speed surveys at the regular basis, and then the speed goes up. And then again, as we design facilities for drivers' comfort, it's just an ongoing cycle. And as an industry, we're seeing these posted speed limits increase. Like I said, this is a very abbreviated discussion of how speed limits are set or have been set. We did do a more detailed presentation back in November of 2020, if anyone is interested in doubling back on that. So, like I said, there's federal, state directive for reevaluating this process for safe speeds, and it uses this safe system approach. We've been kind of saying this over and over in commission, but a very quick overview. There's 6 principles of this safe system. 2 I'm going to highlight. It's the safety is proactive and responsibility is shared. And then internally in this circle, we have the 5 safe elements. So the safe speeds is one of the 5. And in this lower right infographic, there's the correlation to a speed of a vehicle, and then if there were a collision with a pedestrian, what are the chances of that pedestrian's surviving? So again, 20 miles per hour, better chance, and as we get up to 40, the chance of a fatality increases. So in 2018, Assembly Bill 2363 established a task force to take this on and revisit speed zoning. And in 2021, AB 43 passed, and it gives agencies more flexibility in determining speed limits. If any speeds are determined via this new process, they are not enforceable until June 30th of next year. So what does Assembly Bill 43 allow for? There is the option of extending this engineering and traffic survey enforceability period, where currently the maximum length of time is 10 years, now it's 14. There is also going to be an option now where if the city goes through with an engineering traffic survey and one of the results comes back and we have to increase, we have the option, if the street is still of a similar characteristic and the speed is still appropriate, we can retain the previous speed limit. There is an additional designation now of safety corridor, and there's a detailed list of how a segment can be considered part of a safety corridor designation. And then there's more prima facie speed limit options for this 15, 20, and 25. And I give the example here of there's now a business activity district, which allows for 20 and 25. So where does that put Walnut Creek? So this map here, it's not currently complete, but it will be part of our local road safety plan draft. And it is also included as an attachment for those trying to squint and see what's going on here. But on it gives a general overview of where speeds are in the city for March 2022, so last year. Here's a little zoomed in version. So if we look at what these colors designate, it shows vehicles traveling lower than the speed limit, or 0 to 5, or 5 to 10. So what this really shows is the roadways where vehicles are still driving faster than the posted speed. It doesn't necessarily discuss whether or not that speed's appropriate for the context of the facility. So what we have here is we have some streets shown over in the northwest quadrant of the city, some 25-mile-per-hour roads, and then we have Geary Road, which is 35. Still serves homes, still kind of a residential feel. And then very similar to Walnut Boulevard here, which is posted at 35. And again, it may not look, it only pops up as orange with drivers going 0 to 5 above, but really that means 40 miles per hour. And then for fun, we showed YBR. So that one's posted at 55 with a range or 5 to 10 over that. So the local road safety plan, the draft is coming soon, and it should be posted before the next TC meeting. And that will go over kind of, again, the safe system, safe speeds, the county's high collision network, and AB 43 in more details, and do the safety corridor kind of discussion piece. One of the findings from this plan of our injury collisions, the most common, the primary collision factor, PCF, is unsafe speeds at 27%. And as part of that, there's collision profiles related to speeds and then countermeasures. Some of the countermeasures listed here are programmatic, like a speed management policy, implementing these safe system approaches in our CAP, and then this automated enforcement. And this can be red light cameras or down the line speed cameras, which are currently not legal in California, but the plan does mention that. The other ongoing program that the city has is this Neighborhood Streets program. And this really ties in kind of behavior-based solutions and engineering-based solutions. And if we look back to our safe system wheel, we kind of highlight this safe road users. This is where we engage with the neighborhoods, the residents, and kind of let them know why safe speeds are important in the city. And then the engineering solutions here, we have highlighted the safe roads and then incorporating safe speeds into the design of those safe roads. And then this program is intended for residential streets. So this is single family, multifamily, residential context, like with a lot of driveways, but residential land uses. So here's our current behavior-based programs. We have the Pace Car Pledge in the Yard Sign program. If you're interested in participating, you can email us at Duty Traffic, and we'll get you a sign or a little sticker if you agree to drive the speed limit. And then from the engineering solution standpoint, here's just a couple of examples. Again, these are pulled from the local road safety plan. What this Neighborhood Streets program tries to do is engineering solutions can be very expensive, but there are low-cost alternatives. And so this right here, the photo is of a trail crossing improvement, where instead of constructing the concrete curb extension, this bulb out, we did striping and this delineation, these K71s, these bollards. And as part of this local road safety plan and kind of this, we have more big data now. We are going to look at kind of reprioritizing or creating a process for how to implement this Neighborhood Streets program. So currently we're doing a reactive approach. So we get requests for traffic calming from residents, or PD forwards us some complaints. The staff starts reviewing the conditions. This can be spot surveys, speed surveys, collision records, reported collision records, to clarify. And then maybe, is there a pedestrian or bicycle generator these vulnerable roadway users are they using this area? So parks, schools, senior centers, that type of thing. And then we looked at our residents already engaged. So how many participants did we have in this behavior programs? And then we begin the engagement process, and this is where that safe streets, safe speeds, engineering solutions come in. What we're looking to do is be more proactive and equitable. So again, leveraging this big data that we have for the city now, citywide speeding hotspots, taking the collision profiles from the LRSP, again, looking at what generators are in these areas. And then as for neighborhood engagement, being more proactive and getting the community engaged and re-educating them to be safe roadway users. And then lastly, do the safe streets, safe speeds engineering solutions. And here is an example of one that we did on San Carlos Drive. And this was actually done, or I guess funded as part of our uncontrolled crosswalk CIP projects. So this is an example of where we take that kind of basket funds and apply it to these safety projects. So here we have San Carlos Drive at San Jose Court, I believe. It's right where San Miguel Park is. There is a curve and a pedestrian crosswalk just to the north of the curve. And we also happen to have a radar feedback sign there. And on that left side there, it's actually one of the locations where drivers are going 5 to 10 above the posted speed of 25. So when we had our radar speed feedback signs collect data. So we had before data, and this is, the example of we were able to see what was happening out there and address it. So in the upper left, you have the previous cross-section, typical cross-section for the city, and then on the right, you see what we did, which was essentially create a chicane for lower speeds, and we kind of forced the lower speeds to the curve. The before data, we had this 85th percentile speed of 32 miles per hour. And the other little data I have there is the pace speed range. This is the 10 miles per hour range that the most drivers were going. So again, before they were going 32. When the striping contractor came in, all they did first was just striping. There were no bollards. So striping alone, there is only a decrease in this 85th percentile speed of 1 mile per hour. And then with these posts now installed, really forcing that better driver behavior, slowing down through the curve, we're now at 26 miles per hour, so a reduction of a little more than 6 miles per hour. And then going back to the safety aspect, we went from this 32 miles per hour range, so somewhere between the chances of a fatality going 30 to 40, somewhere between 40 and 80%. And now we're between this 20 and 30 range, where the chance of surviving is more like 90 or 60%. So quite the jump. Looking to the future, for this Neighborhood Streets program, we're currently working with the Walnut Boulevard neighborhood and the Homestead Avenue neighbors. So we're going to wrap up this process with them. Again, look back at this program and create a prioritization process, and then begin this process with a new neighborhood or neighborhoods. The draft local road safety plan will be presented in April is the plan. And then if anyone would like to receive updates, you can email me, and as soon as it gets posted, I'll let you know. And then lastly, yes, this AB 43 posted speed limit allowances will be enforceable starting in end of June next year. And with that, open it up for questions and comments.
Before I ask the public for comments or anything. Does anybody have any clarifying questions? Okay, Commissioner Reese.
For San Carlos, with the radar survey at 26 miles per hour, does that mean that you can now post it for 25 and radar enforce it? Or,
It's already posted at 25. That section actually qualifies as a 25 mile per hour like statutory speed limit. So people were just speeding.
right? So they can, when it's a statutory 25 miles per hour, and I should know this, but can you radar enforce a residential district?
Yes.
And business district? You can?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other clarifying questions? Okay. Do we still have anybody on Zoom with us?
We do.
If you're joining us by Zoom and you'd like to have a public comment, please use the raise hand feature or press *9 if you're connected via audio only. Give them a second if anybody wants to comment. You're welcome to or not.
No hands.
Okay. Thank you. So, commissioners, any comments? You want to go first? No?
So I'm curious about, well, I guess it's more of a question, but it's also a comment. It seems it's unfortunate that they passed state legislation in 2021, but then you can't actually apply this state legislation until 2024. That seems like 3 years of us being in limbo as we wait to be able to enforce. That's disappointing, I would say. And it sounds like you mentioned that San Carlos meets the residential district standards. So it sounds like you all have already gone through and looked at all your streets to take, to the maximum extent possible, take advantage of those residential districts, business districts, schools, parks, that sort of thing. So that's sort of a question, but it's a comment because it's great if you've done that already.
Yeah, that's correct. So we did a little bit of posted speed limit cleanup about,
Over the summer.
well, then too, but I think it was about 2 years ago when we got our upgraded or updated engineering traffic surveys, and any of the speed limits that we needed to update, we actually updated any of the strange streets that had speed limits that were not appropriately posted per the California Vehicle Code. So those all got addressed at that point. So it's been a couple years now. And then we've made some other posted speed limit sign changes as needed.
Yeah, I recall North Civic, I think, was 35 a few years ago, and now you've reduced it to 30, and then you move into the unincorporated, I think it's unincorporated county piece, and it's back to 35. So it looks like you've, yeah.
Yeah, so those are actually based on engineering and traffic surveys that were, signed, and those are radar enforceable. But there's
Right.
two segments, and both of those segments are in the city, and then it goes into county. But I think county is still 35 as you get towards the north onto Oak Road.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I love seeing the examples like San Carlos, where we've used design to slow people down, because I think the design of our roadways is much more impactful than the posted speed limits on driver behavior. That's just an assumption that I have, but it seems to have more of an impact than just posting the speed limit on how people drive. And I live near that area, and I definitely have noticed people have slowed down. And it'd be great to see how, like, the knowledge that we gain from these types of projects can potentially inform how we transform our streets in a more permanent fashion, because there's a huge opportunity if we take back all of this roadway from vehicles, because that's just kind of a striped area of asphalt that's not doing anything? And could that be used for stormwater capture or other beautification of these streets that would also help with calming traffic and as well as just enhancing our city, I think, in more impactful ways than just dedicating so much square footage to pavement of very wide streets. So, but thank you for the presentation, and I think it's great to see the impact of these interventions.
Questions? Maria?
I had a question. So for the map that you shared about the speed limits, for the vehicles that are driving like 5 to 10 miles above the speed limit, what is like the cause of this? For example, is it because there's less regulation around these areas?
That's a good question. I mean, why does kind of anyone speed? And it can be, here, let me go back to a map. I do have some close-ups. But when a segment is surveyed, what we do is like we'll lay down a tube and collect counts and speeds, and that's representative of a whole segment. Where in the case of San Carlos, if we look at just that one corner, like yes, this is one of the statutory locations, but it's an isolated location and maybe not representative of a whole segment. So there can be, that's one example.
I think part of this too, and it ties back into the safe system approach, but why does anybody speed on any of these streets? And one component is design, another component could be enforcement. There's a multitude of reasons, and that's what the intent of the safe system approach is to try and address why speeding is made easy. I mean, another example is the design of vehicles. Manufacturers have made vehicles way more comfortable than they used to be. You used to have to hear like airflow, through the car, and so you could feel the speed that you really were going. Now it's super aerodynamic, super comfortable, so you don't even realize maybe that you are going 5, 10, 15 miles per hour over the speed limit because that combination of the design of the vehicle plus the design of the roadway just makes it so that you just tend to go faster. So it's a multitude of reasons, and so we do have to address this from many different angles, and that's why Brianna was mentioning, for this Neighborhood Streets program, we're really looking at 3 of those components of the safe system approach that we can actually do from our level, from the city, level, local level. Some of these other issues like auto manufacturers and the design of vehicles is really outside of our hands as staff.
I would also just add to that, right? Like if you look at the line on the top red here, it's Ignacio going up the hill, right? And that is because you have gone every 100 yards, you have a traffic light, and all of a sudden you have 1,000 yards to your next traffic light. But you have this open space, a wider road, open hills. So when their staff is talking about the design of the road, part of it is to shrink it so you don't have that feel like it's just easy now to step on the gas, right? It's this feeling of, hey, it's cool. And I see the same thing on my neighborhood street versus others. In the front section of it, when people come in from Oak Grove, it's very wide because there's a lot of like crossing, and there's talk about how do we get a median in there to slow everybody down. And it just makes a big difference, is that design.
Oh, thank you. And then I also had another question. So if we implement infrastructure to reduce speeds, like for example, the roundabouts or the lane narrowing, will that increase like traffic and congestion, especially around schools? Since I know that like early in the morning and around after school times, around especially the front of Northgate, it's super congested. Do we know if that's because of the roundabout there?
So prior to the roundabout, and Sonar, correct me if I'm wrong, it was always stop control. So if we think about that improvement, it was a safety improvement. It was also a capacity improvement. Cars don't have to stop if there's no cars. congestion in front of a school, especially around peak, is kind of the nature of a school. And at least for the case of Northgate and the boundary, there is a lot of students who are coming from over the hill, and they don't have the option of walking or biking or taking transit. It's kind of like a forced situation where they have to drive to school in the case of Northgate.
I would just add that the focus of the local roadway safety plan really is, and generally traffic safety is looking at what kind of safety improvements need to be made, and sometimes compromises need to be made or other considerations need to be made. So if you had to choose between safety improvements and potential impacts to efficiency for vehicle movement, that is something that does need to be part of, consideration for a greater policy that the council would, implement, and is also part of this local roadway safety plan as well.
Commissioner Reese?
So I think I want to clarify that I have lived in the area since '87, and so I knew that as an all-way stop at that intersection, and the traffic backed up because it was an all-way stop forever. It went all the way back to the school. It went all the way up, sometimes 3, 4, 5 blocks in every direction. So the roundabout, I think, has provided safety because it's cleaned up the movements, it's organized the movements of people driving and walking and biking that an all-way stop doesn't do. And so I just wanted that to be on the record, that the roundabout was a really good solution that the city implemented several years ago.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So always stop control, where you have stop signs from every single approach, is considered the worst of the types of control you can have at an intersection in terms of traffic congestion. It's the longest amount of time you're going to have to wait. When you have multiple lanes approaching the intersection, it's even worse because you don't know if the person in the right lane is supposed to go versus you versus the person who's making a left turn. So it gets more complicated. It's more convoluted. So we consider it, like the worst congestion scenario. So a roundabout in and of itself is a capacity enhancement because it does clean up the movements. It makes it very clear who's supposed to be going, and it just allows flow to continue through. So this was a perfect example where you're actually able to provide massive safety improvements, but at the same time, you actually did provide vehicle efficiency too. So those are the types of wins generally that when we're looking at traffic safety projects, we're trying to achieve, because increasing frustration for anybody that's not the ideal situation. But when it comes back to making decisions, there is going to have to be a lever that needs to pull in one direction versus the other. And as Brianna had mentioned regarding school traffic, it is a very short, very intense period of time. And what we've always done as traffic engineers, or traditionally had done, was design roadways for these really intense times. And then what ends up happening is you have a roadway that's super wide and really comfortable to drive on during these off-peak times, which then leads to speeding, which comes back to, what we're talking about right now.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Questions? I just have a question then, which is how all of these hotspots that you identified, how often do you have you been to all of them and driven and walked them yourself? Have you had that opportunity?
Yeah, probably, yes.
Okay.
To be fair, I've been here a year and a half, so I might have missed a few, but someone on our team has definitely walked or driven them.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. I'm in favor of getting out and seeing and touching things. So thank you. Okay, we are on to, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we are on to commission. Next on the agenda is an item for commission consideration, the Commissioners Committee appointments. At this time, I will open this item for public comment. Do we have any of the members of the public wishing to provide public comment? Is anybody still there on Zoom?
We do have some folks on Zoom, but no raised hands.
Okay, we'll give them a second to raise their hand. Okay. Can this I had a question on, there was a briefing memo as part of this, do these people have to be reappointed? Are there openings? Can Secretary clarify?
Yeah, so I think for the mayor's breakfast, it's traditionally the chair and the vice chair, so I would suggest that continues. And then otherwise, if you want to change it up, feel free just to distribute the workload.
Okay, but the other appointments, they haven't ended or anything. It's just if anybody wants to change their role. I know a couple people are on the multimodal. You guys good?
Okay.
Anybody else want to do something else or?
So if you don't want to do the CCTA committee, I'd be happy to do it if you don't want to do it anymore, but I'm not like jumping at the bit to do it. I just want to offer that up.
I appreciate that, and I may take you up on that at some point. I'm currently chair of that committee, so I think I have to fulfill that term. But then I might want to step down. But if you're interested, we still have 2 out of 3 at-large appointments still available. Or so if you or anybody else you know, we can come in, and you wouldn't represent Walnut Creek. You'd come in as a county-wide representative. Awesome. So there's no need for a motion then? Is there?
I think you still need to make a motion just to confirm what was just discussed.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion for the newly elected chair and vice chair. Congratulations to go to the mayor's quarterly breakfast for Chair Ash to continue his service through his chairmanship on the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Citizen Advisory Committee, and for Commissioners German and Reese to continue their service on the Shared Mobility Working Group.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Okay, Commissioner Cagle,
Aye.
Commissioner German,
Aye.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salcido,
Aye.
and Chair Ash.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries.
At this time, I would like to invite commissioners and staff to provide their reports on activities or announcements. I would also just say within that, if there are any subjects that you would like at future meetings in the next 6 to 12 months that are reasonable for staff, please throw that out there now. Don't all rush. Okay, I will. I heard a study session on YVR, and based on maybe the North Downtown or the downtown plan related to the RENA numbers. And then I would like, a couple of years ago, this commission was tasked with raising the parking meter rates in the city in order to keep the 85% number, which is the goal for parking occupancy. And I would love to get a report on where we are with parking occupancy, vacancy rates. Are we hitting our intended goals? I know a number of parking spaces have vanished with more outdoor dining and shopping and stuff. And the budget related to that, right? The parking meters bring in a lot of money to this. And so I'd like to know that, if that's doable. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other comments, questions, announcements? Awesome.
I
All right.
have.
Okay,
sorry,
staff? Steph can go.
Okay, so just a quick update. So as Brianna had mentioned, we're working on, or Matt Redmond and Brianna Byrne are working on the Neighborhood Streets Program deployment for Walnut Boulevard north of Ignacio, and then also Walnut Boulevard and Homestead south of Ignacio. So they are working on next steps with those residents, and that is the update.
Great, thank you, Steph. All right, then I hereby adjourn this, the March 16th, 2023 regular meeting of the Transportation Commission. Our next meeting is April 20th, 2023, and the next regular meeting is May 18th, 2023. We are closed. And I think there should be more things to hit a gavel in the future.